Speaking of like trinkets and movie going and everything, I, I'm just curious to ask you about popcorn buckets. These like movie themed popcorn corn buckets, because like when I go to my theater, they now have like a huge display. It's like when you're like a Target or whatever, you know how they make it so when you're walking to the register, you have to pass all these sort of little odds and ends that you think, oh, that'd be fun. I'll buy
Yeah.
that, that sort of gimmick. So when you go to the concession stand, now you snake through this area where they have all these shelves of popcorn buckets.
Yeah.
And I mean, they've had these for a long time. I think the Dune popcorn bucket was the one that really brought a lot of people's attention to it for the first time. But I mean, every movie since, like I have, there was an Andrea Bocelli movie that showed for like a week, but they made a popcorn bucket for that.
Really?
Yeah, which I have because I thought it was so funny. And and so you have certain ones that are just regular tins. So I remember for Mission Impossible, it was just like a red bucket with an image of Ethan Hunt dangling from a mountain or something, right? But then some of the others get really, really elaborate. And the one that really stood out to me when I went to the movies the other night was they had this Tron arcade cabinet popcorn bucket. So it looks cool. Like it looks like a mini arcade cabinet, and but that movie just didn't perform like I think people expected. People weren't interested in buying merch for that film, and they still have those Tron arcade things every time you walk up to the register. Wow. And it's like, I think when they came out, they're probably like $60, and then it's like $30, and now it's like 2 for $15.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, well, and then I still pass like Wicked stuff, but then there's new things, like Michael, and it looks like it's like a bucket, but it looks like there's a gold record on top. But anyway, with Mandalorian and
the one battle after another where it's just Colonel Lockjaw's head that you eat popcorn out of.
Yeah, or it's like the paternity test machine, with like the 2 levels. And you just like open that up and eat the popcorn out of it. He may not be her father, DiCaprio, but he is her dad. Eating out of that machine. So, but Mandalorian and Grogu, I saw that they have this big, elaborate, freaking AT-AT Walker popcorn bucket, quote unquote bucket.
Yeah,
and it looks like something I would have wanted as a kid, just like a toy. Right. But it costs, I want to say it costs $80.
What the? Okay.
Yeah. And I remember the Avatar thing also. I don't remember the creature's name, but whatever those, the sky dragon things that they fly, they had those and they lit up and they were like $80 or something. And I don't know. I mean, I don't have a point to all this. I just think it's kind of fascinating that they are investing so much in these things.
Yeah.
And some of them become collector's items. I think the Yoshi popcorn bucket from Super Mario Galaxy, probably sold for like $60 or something. And now you can go on eBay and see them for, who knows, 100 plus. But then it's interesting seeing you've got all these leftovers. And I just wonder, I don't know how this is like netting out for them. If it's, maybe they only cost $5 to make, so not much is lost. But I just find it fascinating. I'm curious how much longer it'll go for. And I'm kind of curious what your experience with these is at your theater. I mean, do you see a lot of these? Do you see a lot of leftovers?
I see. I mean, now that you mention it, I mean, I guess I don't spend a lot of time glancing at things in the concessions area.
So you don't have to like pass them?
Right.
Okay.
So I've not seen like the more elaborate ones, but I not in person, but I see pictures online. And for me, there's just a practicality aspect of it where, I mean, it's like taking up space forever, like in a collection. So I'm kind of like, for some of these, I mean, I can see Star Wars fans obviously buying the Star Wars ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
But some of this other stuff, it's so transient that I wonder about. Like I think that what was it like 2 years ago? There was like the Deadpool and Wolverine one, right? And there was like people were lining up to get them. I think it was Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah, I kind of remember that.
I forget even what it was. I just remember there was like a limit 1 per customer thing. And I'm like, okay, I can kind of see somebody wanting that. But not all movies are going to have sort of
Yeah.
that toyetic or collectible adjacent,
Yeah, or like an
quality.
event. It's like when you go to a concert and you want to sort of memorialize it in sort of a way, and you can put it on your shelf like a shirt or whatever you get. So I can see that maybe with a certain movie that's like an event, and you go with a big group of friends and whatever. But
Like even Dune, right? It was just, hey, it looks like a butthole. Like that was the whole.
yeah,
That was
the
entire,
novelty
right?
of it. Yeah,
The
yeah.
novelty of it. Hey, butthole bucket. Okay.
Mhm.
I would imagine that wears off too after a while.
Yeah, I mean it's funny for a week or a couple days, but then I mean, is that thing still sitting on your shelf like
Yeah.
in a proud spot? I don't know.
Yeah. Leave it there as a conversation starter on Thanksgiving.
Well, I think for Billy, I've been meaning to ask you.
Yeah.
Taking a bite of turkey. No, but no, for me, I've been kind of lucky where my friend works at a studio, and so I've gone to a couple screenings there that they host, and they've given out their buckets there for free.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And so I have like a Mission Impossible bucket and whatever. Well, like I said, the simple ones, it's just a popcorn bucket,
Right.
but it's branded, right?
Right.
And I do love it. Like I do use it. It's fun, and because it works as a popcorn bucket,
right?
But sometimes I'll see certain ones that look cool. Like if I saw I think AMC had DeLoreans.
Okay.
For when the anniversary of Back to the Future.
That's cool,
Yeah, it's cool. I can understand that sort of thing, but some of them are just so elaborate. And also for a movie that like I'm catching because I have the time and not because it's something that I'm really thinking much about. I just think it's interesting that they just went all in on that and making this really expensive merch for it. And
this feels like a ramp up from, we're talking 20 years ago. I remember Slurpee cups used to be very elaborate.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I remember going to 7-Eleven when Revenge of the Sith came out, and there were like 4 different Slurpee cups, all with the Darth Vader topper.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, these are cool. And then I got them. I had 4 of them. And then at some point, when I moved or whatever, I'm like, man, what am I supposed to do with these?
Yeah, sure.
And in the trash they went. I probably could have put them on eBay now that I think about it. But anyway, this is like exponentially more.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of sort of the logistical hassle factor, the feng shui of it all,
Yeah, and when you're like pricing the average person out of a popcorn bucket, like it's just like, I don't know, it's just the natural evolution of things, I guess. I don't know.
It's sort of, comic books used to do this, where this is in the 90s at the height of the speculator era, so we're talking early 90s, and you may even have memory of this, like the covers were trying to out gimmick each other.
Yeah, I kind of remember this.
So you had like you had like glow in the dark cover and hologram cover, and then it became like pop-up cover and color forms cover, and it eventually became such a pain in the ass because you're paying extra for literally there was a Superman cover it came with those plastic clings,
mm-hmm.
and you could make a little color form scene.
Interesting.
And it's like, there is a novelty, a brief novelty, but then when it comes to storage and everything, it's a big hassle, right?
Yeah.
So all of this is to say, like, when I was doing my bindings, I realized that, like, if you're trying to flip through a book, a big, heavy cardboard hologram thing makes it hard, right? So even though I owned the gimmick covers, I went back in and purchase the normal version of those issues.
Yep.
So, right, eventually it's like, well, the gimmick becomes a pain.
Yeah.
And it's like, just give me the normal thing. And I feel like, just to transfer the analogy, at some point, you just want a thing to eat popcorn out of that you throw away.
Yeah, right. Or like, it's cool to take something home and I can use it because it's actually useful, but I don't need like 20 of them.
Yeah, like how much popcorn does one intend to eat?
Yeah. But although I am susceptible sometimes to the shiny thing. Sure. When you're in the moment, you're going to see a certain thing, and then you see like a little thing that you can hold in your hand. Like I get the draw.
Well, sure, but like, okay, so you use the AT-AT as an example.
Yeah,
that's just kind of that's a neat thing. I wouldn't pay $80 for it.
No, very cool though. I mean, I just always loved AT-AT walkers.
Sure, right?
Yeah.
Or the DeLorean, or like give me an Anton First Batmobile popcorn holder. Well, I would just put that on my shelf.
Yeah, so I just instinctively held up my hand with cash in it when you said that.
See? Right?
Yeah.
Right? But yeah, I mean, at some point, again, and actually, you know, if you give me the Colonel Lockjaw head, I might get that. Put that next to the butthole thing and just let people have their own conversations.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah. Wait, by the way, this is completely random, but this is Sunday, May 17th. Have you seen last night's SNL?
I've only seen a couple of sketches. I fell asleep.
Did you see the opening with the
Jeffrey Epstein one?
Yeah, Will Ferrell played Jeffrey Epstein and, talking to Donald Trump.
I did.
Did you think that Will Ferrell with his wig and his sweater and everything looked like Harrison Ford from The Fugitive when he steals that old man's clothes from the hospital?
That's funny. Wow.
Right? He's got that like gray grandpa sweater. And I couldn't stop thinking about it. And then I wanted to make sure to tell you. And then this morning on Instagram or something, I saw someone say, is it just me or did Will Ferrell look like Harrison Ford in that opening sketch last night? And I was like, whoa, yeah.
There you go. You keyed in on something. The Fugitive, it's so funny that you mentioned that because I screened that in my class and I teach a class called Cultural Expression in Media and I try to culminate the course by talking about film itself as culture, like the experience of watching a movie with an audience that becomes a shared cultural moment, you know? And so I like using The Fugitive as an example because it's obviously it was a huge blockbuster, but also it was a critical and, awards favorite. And so it has that dual layers of credibility. And plus for most, if we're talking about pop culture half-life, I mean, gosh, overwhelmingly students have not seen this, It's a movie they enjoy. And in my final one question that I close out with is, what was your favorite movie that we watched this semester? And it gratifies me so much that so many of them are like, well, I know it's the last one, but man, did I love The Fugitive.
Really?
Oh, it was so good. And it just makes me happy because I'm like, this is a movie that in terms of the situation that it presents, it's so technologically removed from where we are now, right? Like Richard Kimball in 2026 has he runs a very different gauntlet. You know what I'm saying? And that would be an interesting story. But in that sense, it's very out of date, right?
Yeah.
The idea that Kimball can just sort of disappear into a maze of humanity and sort of function with a certain level of anonymity feels very, very quaint.
I mean, like every movie now is like, check the CCTV.
And
it's
people
just
pulling out their phones and recording whatever.
Yeah, like Running Man, which I know is supposed to be slightly futuristic, but it's not that far off, where everyone can just pull out their phones and find that person.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's a great point. Yeah.
It's very different, but yet they plug into the character drama and the performances and the stuff the same stuff that you and I have loved about that movie for decades. That makes it so utterly rewatchable. I saw somebody online say once that's finish watching from wherever you happen to channel surf across it movie.
Completely. Yeah.
It's so true. Right. And, I always say, what was your favorite movie and why? And the responses were great, where it was like, I was glad that the deputy came around to his side, or that he believed him, like, in other words, sort of liking both characters.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Right? Or one comment I loved. I loved how Dr. Kimball went out of his way to help others when it would have been easier not to.
Wow.
And I'm like, man, if those are the responses, I feel like I'm doing something right.
Isn't that funny? They're not talking about action sequences.
Exactly.
Yeah, like they really locked into the characters and who they are, and That's amazing. That makes me so happy.
It really does, because I try to frame it. I'm like, what is the shorthand that films give us? How do we know instinctively when a character is a bad guy, a good guy? And I talk about Save the Cat and things like that. And
Mm-hmm.
in The Fugitive, one of the first instances first indications we get that Kimball is a good guy is after the train crash. He's the only one who helps the cop who's been stabbed.
Yep.
And like right away, you're like, okay, good guy, and so I try to walk them through what a movie is doing to make them better aware of, like, this is everything that's in a film is there intentionally, and it's trying to make you feel a certain way. So interrogate your feelings. Why do you feel this way or that? And I use the same thing about Gerard. I'm like, how do we know he's not a bad guy? And I talk about protagonist versus antagonist, and I'm like, a protagonist is not a good guy. Antagonist is not a bad guy. It's protagonist is who we spend the most time with.
Mm-hmm.
Antagonist is whoever's trying to stop our protagonist from achieving their goal.
Mm-hmm.
And I walk them through this where I'm like, the more time you spend with the character, the more you feel invested in them. And I'm like, Gerard and Kimball, we spend equal time. We like them both, so it's fun to me when they are picking out this stuff,
I just, I wish you could almost take this, like your students, and use this as a study to show studios what resonates.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? It isn't trying to top yourself with visual effects. It isn't, any of that sort of thing. It's if the characters resonate and their journey resonates, people walk away satisfied. So like, that's what you should be working on first.
Yeah. And I think it gets to like, what are the movies that outlive their moment, and what are the ones that maybe burn white hot for a second,
mm-hmm.
but are utterly forgotten.
You know what's funny? This reminds me, I rewatched the movie Splash recently.
Okay.
And that was a huge hit when it came out in 1984. And it was in the top 10 box office of the year. And I was listening to a podcast, and they were interviewing Ron Howard, just reflecting about Splash being this big breakout moment for him and Tom Hanks and everybody. And so I was like, it's on Disney Plus. So I'll rewatch that.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it opens with he and Tom Hanks and John Candy are brothers. And it shows a flashback where they're little boys. And you see the John Candy boy basically throwing change on the ground and picking it up, but it's just an excuse so he can look up women's skirts.
Gotcha.
And so then it, shows them in the present, and John Candy is still throwing stuff on the ground so he can look up women's dresses.
I believe that's what you were doing the first time you and I met.
That's how we met. Yes, actually. Yeah. That's right. But I was like, wow, that is so funny that this like really creepy thing, like in 84, everyone was like, yes, that's our guy. You know what I mean? And even that's one example. But then Tom Hanks and Daryl Hannah's relationship is just so empty. You know what I mean? It's like she saw him once and now she's obsessed with him. And as soon as they see each other, they have sex, like immediately. Yeah. And then they want to get married. And I'm like, what? Like, what?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he's like, she's the love of his life. I'm like, she hasn't spoken a word to you yet. You know what I mean? So I just feel like a movie like that would not, hold up to today's audiences for many reasons.
Yeah.
But in the moment it worked.
Right.
But like we're talking about, there are just certain movies where they do like a great job, with like the human condition and characters and what they want and what they need and making them relatable or at least understandable. And those are the movies where maybe culturally we don't talk about The Fugitive as much. But if you show it to a group of younger people who might never have put it on themselves, it holds up just as well as it did 30 some years ago.
Yeah. It's gratifying.
Yeah. So I think that's really cool. Your class, just that it exists. I mean, that's such an amazing thing. Not only to expose kids to like amazing movies they may have missed, but also to give them like a kind of a literacy or get them into a dialogue about like not just watching a movie, but thinking about a movie and digging in the way that you guys do. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, well, I hope so. I saw a thing online, and maybe this was bait to some extent, but it was somebody responding to the question of like, what is a good age to show your kids the Lord of the Rings films?
Mm-hmm.
And this person says, well, if your kids are little, like 5, that's probably too young. So another 5 years, then they're 10-ish. But at that point, the movies are going to be more than 30 years old, and no kid is going to watch a movie that's more than 30 years old.
Hey, this is Brian, and that was a preview of an hour-long bonus conversation Zachy and I had where we talked about everything from novelty popcorn buckets to Masters of the Universe tracking and tie-in toys. And we also had a surprisingly in-depth conversation about the 2001 John Travolta, Hugh Jackman, Halle Berry movie Swordfish. You can find this conversation in its entirety over on our Patreon feed, along with other bonus conversations we've previously dropped, which usually happens about twice a month, as well as ad-free versions of all our commentaries and regular episodes. Just head over to patreon.com/moviefilmpodcast, hit subscribe, and for only $5 a month, you can get in on all this ad-free fun. That's patreon.com/moviefilmpodcast.